Marty Cohn, and welcome to episode 29 of Rotary Cares, a monthly show that will tell you everything you want to know about Rotary International and more. Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers that come together to make lasting positive change in communities at home and abroad. Established over 115 years ago, Rotary now has 35,000 plus clubs all over the world. Rotary's motto is service above self, and Rotarians adhere to the four-way test, an ethical guide for Rotarians to use for their personal and professional relationships. The test has been translated into more than 100 languages. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? In Brattleboro, there are two Rotary clubs, the Brattleboro Rotary Club that meets every Thursday and the Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary Club that meets every Wednesday. During this COVID pandemic, both clubs are meeting via Zoom. Today, we will be discussing a focus area of Rotary International, Polio Plus. Our guest is Mike McGovern, chair of the International Polio Plus Committee. Mike joined Rotary in 1986 as a member of the Rotary Club of South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, Maine, USA. He served as president of that club in 1993, then continued on to many regional positions in Rotary, eventually including service on the global board of Rotary as the vice president of Rotary International. He became the Rotary Polio chair in 2014. Mike's professional career was in local government, serving Cape Elizabeth, Maine as its town manager for 31 years, prior to retiring at the end of 2016. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Marty. Great to be with you today.
Well, and thanks again. Thanks to Zoom for the ability for us to be able to do the show together. Mike, I only said a few sentences about your Rotary career, but you've been involved in Rotary for 34 years. Do you remember why you joined?
Sometimes I tell a story that I don't know if it's true. It's really not true, but I tell the story. I actually joined Rotary in October of 1986. And the story I tell is that after seeing the Red Sox Mets World Series and seeing the ball go through Bill Buckner's legs, that I needed more meaning in life. And the way to recover from that terrible loss for a Red Sox fan was to join Rotary. But seriously, there were a number of folks that had asked me to join Rotary for some time. I had been involved in a project the Rotary Club had done working for the community, building a community picnic shelter, which is just a tremendous success. All these 34 years later, it's still tremendously useful. I saw the benefit of Rotary, and a few people had asked me over the years. And finally, a gentleman by the name of Alec Livingston sadly passed away about a month ago. He gave me a call one day and said, "Mike, it's time for you to join Rotary." And I had just finished graduate school, which I was doing full time when I was working. And I said yes, and I've never regretted it since.
Well, speaking as a member of the Red Sox Nation, I'm glad that you joined Rotary. So Mike, the eradication of polio is a major focus of Rotary International for 30 years. How did that focus evolve?
It actually first began in the Philippines in the late 1970s. The Salk vaccine actually came out in 1955, now 65 years ago. And after that, in the United States and Canada and Britain, they got rid of polio for their children. The Rotarians in the Philippines really didn't think it was right that a country like theirs still had polio. So they approached the Rotary Foundation asking for a grant. And the Rotary Foundation provided the grant. They worked with the government. Actually, for those that remember Imelda Marcos, she was the patron of the program. She was the first lady at the time, very, very helpful with polio eradication. But they eradicated polio And so then Rotary said, wow, if we can do that in one country, why couldn't we do it throughout the world? So Rotary approached the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and actually we didn't get a first good reaction. Smallpox had been the only disease that was eradicated. They sort of looked at Rotarians as, well, they're business folks, and what do they really know about eradicating disease? But there was a continued dialogue, and finally they said, well, maybe you could go out and try to raise some money to help out. And we raised $240 million. And suddenly, and I don't mean this, but all good bureaucrats, you say you're going to work with them and you have $240 million, they listen to you a lot more than in the past. So we partnered up, formed the Global Polio Eradication Initiative with WHO and UNICEF, with the United States Centers for Disease Control. And later on, we've also been joined by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. That was formed in 1988 when there were 350,000 cases around the world. And slow but sure, we're in a position now, we're only in 2 countries, Pakistan and Afghanistan. And for each of the last 5 years, we've had less than 200 cases worldwide of the wild polio virus.
Thanks for that summary, Mike. So what has been the Rotary's financial contribution to the polio eradication effort?
It's as I mentioned, the first goal was 120 million, and we actually raised about 240 million. Since that time, Rotarians, Rotary clubs, and monies that Rotary has directly solicited from the community has raised over $1.1 billion over the course of the years since 1985. In addition to that, about 2006-07, we started partnering with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and with various funding formulas, they have agreed to match money that Rotary spends, and that has now accumulated over the years to $980 million. And that money comes to Rotary. The committee that I chair, the International Polio Plus Committee of Rotary, actually makes recommendations to the trustees of the Rotary Foundation. So we have now given over $2 billion in grants for polio eradication. All those monies are channeled through WHO, the World Health Organization, and UNICEF. And in addition, there's smaller amounts, but it's probably about $40 million now that we also channel through Rotary clubs in areas where there is polio, for them to do different activities to assist the cause. So it's a substantial contribution. We also do advocacy and other things for others to give governments, and I think maybe we'll chat about that a little later.
But Mike, so with all this money that's being raised, how is the money used?
It's I do want to make one point on the money. We have 35,000 clubs. My club has polio cans on the table. People put their spare change in. Even though we're talking big sums, it's over many, many years, and every dollar counts. How is the money used? Right now we're immunizing 450 million children around the world. We're buying vaccines. 19% of what we spent last year was for actual vaccines. A lot of what we fund are community-based health workers. These are people who are hired locally, mostly women, and they go door to door, and they actually provide the vaccine, to the individuals. They put the drops in the mouths of the children. And we pay them small stipends. You got to remember, a lot of these are poor countries in Africa and Pakistan. So, a small stipend can go a long way to providing someone family support, as well as having them devoted to the program. We fund surveillance, which means we identify polio cases. We fund transportation of fecal samples that go to laboratories that were also involved in the funding. We fund a little bit of research, and the other piece we fund, and it's an issue here with COVID in our part of the world, we fund something called social mobilization, and that's the billboards, it's the radio advertising, social media efforts. It's all of the trying to convince people that this is something that they ought to do for their children. And eventually, we want this to be not our program. We want it to be the program, polio eradication, the program of the people in individual communities.
And just to make the point, what is the number of polio cases in the world?
Right now, we started with 350,000 when we began this. Where it's estimated we're avoiding 650,000 cases per year by what we're doing. The number of children have gone up, but the actual numbers are, right now, it's so far in this calendar year, and we're recording this in mid-October, is about 125 cases worldwide of the wild polio virus. We also have some vaccine-derived cases, which are a few more, but the wild polio virus is about 125 cases so far in 2020.
October 24th is World Polio Day. We're going to take a short break for this word from endpolio.org. Endpolio.org, a great place to learn about what Rotary is doing. We'll be right back.
We are this close.
We are this close.
We are this close.
This close to making history.
This close.
We're this close. This close. We are this close.
We are this close.
This close.
This close to changing the world.
We are this close to making sure no child suffers a crippling disease
Ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
We're this close to ending polio.
We're this close.
This close. This close to ending polio.
This close.
We are this close to ending polio. All we need is you.
All we need is you.
All we need is you. Is you.
All we need is you.
This close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history at endpolio.org.
Welcome back to Rotary Cares, a monthly show that demystifies Rotary International. Our guest is Mike McGovern, and we're talking about eradicating polio, which would be the second disease to be wiped out after smallpox. Mike, in August, it was reported that Africa is now polio-free. Where is polio still endemic?
We're very pleased, Marty, that in August, the World Health Organization, the Regional Certification Commission, declared 47 countries in the African region as polio-free. It's not in the entirety of Africa. There's a few countries in the far north that are actually in another region of the World Health Organization. But so where we still have cases, the region that hasn't been certified polio-free is something called the Eastern Mediterranean region, EMRO, E-M-R-O. And anyone could Google that and find out all the countries. But it's places like Syria, Iran, Iraq, Libya, not the easiest places. But where it's still endemic, where we're seeing polio cases, are in the two countries of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And in fact, in the last 4 years, those are the only places we've had wild polio cases in the world. And the last case outside of there, 4 years ago, we had a couple in Nigeria. 6 years ago, we had a couple in Somalia. So, it's really amazing when you consider, there's 200 countries, geographic areas in the world. We're down to 2. Great progress.
Now, Mike, you traveled to Pakistan for Rotary about 3 years ago. What challenges are you seeing now in those countries?
I've been fortunate to visit Pakistan 4 or 5 times, including in February, right before COVID hit, and traveled there. In fact, this time I visited with this year's president of Rotary International, Holger Kanak, a gentleman from Germany, and Ravi Ravindran, the head of our foundation, who was from Sri Lanka. And, it was fascinating to see the challenges. We had an opportunity to meet with Imran Khan, who was the prime minister there, with General Basra, who was the army chief of staff, and anyone knows anything about Pakistan knows it's a very important position. And, the challenges have been, some self-inflicted, to be honest. Imran Khan, the prime minister, was sort of apologetic, was very open, including right in front of the press, saying that momentum had been lost when he became prime minister. He appointed someone as a polio focal person who, for various reasons, didn't work out. We had a challenge with social media. There were some, people that developed false tapes, and unfortunately for them, they showed too much of them, but it showed children dropping after getting polio drops. And the vials weren't the ones we used. It was all a staged thing, but it was enough to create doubt. And 200,000 kids were taken to the hospital that week by their parents, thinking that they might have the same issue. There was no issue. The hospital found nothing, but the damage was done. We also have issues in Afghanistan with what we euphemistically refer to as anti-government elements, but it's the Taliban, it's ISIS, and because of concern with that the program might be Western dominated and other reasons, they have been resistant to allow us to do house-to-house or even allow community-based vaccinators to do house-to-house vaccines. And for the last 18 months, in the parts that are of Afghanistan that are controlled by the anti-government elements, which is about half the country, we've only been able to provide polio drops by people going to clinics, and obviously you don't reach that many. So that's all challenges. We've been involved in discussions indirectly with the Taliban, not Rotary, but the partnership has. We've also, there's been talks with the U.S. government on health issues and health concerns and health access in Afghanistan directly with the Taliban. And we're fortunate. I've gone to 3 or 4 meetings in Washington D.C. and over the last year or two, and have actually had an opportunity to meet with the folks representing the United States at those talks. So it's the anti-government elements, it's the social media, it's the government dropping the ball a little bit. But every indication was in February that it was fully coming back, and we couldn't have had any commitments. The general that I mentioned, he was actually out a week ago when immunizations fully resumed for polio in Pakistan, and he was putting the drops in people's mouths. And he said that he thought the last case would be next year in Pakistan. I hope he's right, but time will tell. Obviously, it's nice to see them working and committed to eradicating polio.
Now, Mike, I heard a story that you were at a Rotary event with Rotary International President Wilf Wilkinson and Rotary Foundation Chair Director Bob Scott in 2007, when Dr. Scott got a call from the Gates Foundation giving Rotary $1 million. That's US dollars. How has Rotary and the Gates Foundation worked together since then?
You want to ask it again?
Mike, I've heard a story that you were at a Rotary event with Rotary International President Wilf Wilkinson and Rotary Foundation Chair Director Bob Scott in 2007, when Dr. Scott got a call from the Gates Foundation giving Rotary $1 million, US dollars. How has Rotary and the Gates Foundation worked together since then?
Just a slight correction. It was actually 100 million, not 1 million.
I'm sorry, you're right. 100.
Yeah, 100 million at the call. Actually, we were at a dinner meeting in Japan, and we had heard that the money was coming, but this was a confirmation that the wire transfer had actually come through with the 100 million. And I'll never forget it. Bob Scott, we were meeting with the Japanese director of Rotary, and I'll never forget Bob Scott. We were having a glass of wine, raised his wine glass, and simply said, "To the children of the world." And that really summed it up. But the Gates Foundation, ever since then, has been working with us. They provide for every dollar that Rotarians give or that Rotarians are able to obtain from community sources, they match it 2 to 1. It's very generous. It's added up to a lot of money over the time, and then Rotary allocates that money to WHO and UNICEF. So, it's a very important partnership. The Gates Foundation is actually the #1 donor to all of polio eradication, to the partnership that we're in. They also help with research and are actually have staff in the different countries where polio is endemic. So they're a great partner, and you know, who you couldn't ask for a better partner.
All right, great. Well, so we've got Rotary, we've got the Gates Foundation. Are there other organizations related to polio eradication?
There are. We also work with the World Health Organization, headquartered in Geneva, and their regional offices. We work with UNICEF, you know, obviously devoted to helping children. We work with one of the other partners is the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, and they help. We also work with Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. They're fairly new to the partnership, and they provide the very important service of paying for the injectable polio vaccine, IPV, which is separate from the oral polio vaccine. And that is an inactivated virus, but also helps build up the immunity levels in the individuals who receive it. So, you know, they're all good partners. We also partner with the governments of the world, both as donors, many of them, as well as the implementers in the different countries, you know, with the program is active. Last year, we worked in over 60 countries around the world.
So Mike, how has COVID impacted the Rotary's polio program?
You know, it's at the very beginning, something called the Polio Oversight Board met, and we all agreed that we needed to suspend house-to-house activities. You know, obviously, you know, until people got a handle on COVID and we were able to equip everyone with the personal protective equipment. So we felt it was a moral imperative to stop going door to door to protect both the polio workers as well as to protect all the people in the homes that we were visiting. Since then, and beginning then, Rotary and the partnership has really tried to assist with the COVID response. You know, Dr. Moetti, who's the regional director of the World Health Organization in Africa, said that there's nothing that's a parallel to the polio network for being in place, helping to respond, and having the expertise for mounting effective vaccination campaigns. You know, we're also experts in logistics, we're vaccine delivery, vaccine acquisition, as well as, you know, working with the local health systems, working with communities. We do the surveillance for polio. A lot of that network has also been doing the surveillance for COVID. That's identifying the cases, doing the testing. We also fund laboratories, and a lot of those have been repurposed to help out with COVID. One specific example, we visited a polio call center when we were in Pakistan in early February, and that's where a lot of people call and have questions. Oh, you know, when can I get my polio vaccine? You know, I have some questions about the vaccine, and those were repurposed to help out with COVID. And they've been expanded greatly. They're still helping out with polio. But good news for us is, you know, we've done an awful lot of work to equip everyone with the mask, with shields, with hand wash. Just today, I got an email from our chair in Pakistan, and the Unilever Corporation is giving bars of soap to the polio workers so that every house they visit will also be given a bar of soap to emphasize hand washing. And, you know, it's you know, all of these things come together, helping with COVID, as well as ensuring that we can safely resume the polio program in all the places that it is needed.
So Mike, you know, as we like, you know, you said we're this close. Where will the program go from here?
You know, the program, you know, is constantly reevaluating how to get this done. You know, to me, you know, obviously we need continued financial support. We need support from the governments. We need to work with the anti-government elements to finish things off. We need to sustain the polio-free Africa by continuing to immunize all of their children until we know it's safely gone away. But to me, more than anything else, we need to be sure that the people in the communities, particularly in Pakistan and Afghanistan, see this as their program, not as someone else's program that's imposed on them, that it is their children. And, you know, they need to be fully engaged, have full ownership. And, you know, and we need to find ways to be responsive to more fully integrate polio into the health systems and health priorities in those communities. And that's through providing other routine immunizations and other services. We've got to make sure we don't have Project Creep, but we've always called this Polio Plus. And, we need to be innovative, we need to be agile, and we need to, most of all, listen to be sure that we're responsive to the issues, the needs in the community to ensure healthy communities and to ensure that Rotary and everyone else can eradicate polio and move on to other priorities in the world.
Mike, last question. What's the best thing for you about being a Rotarian?
It's the easy thing in this forum would to say working on polio, but to me, Rotary, is a network of community volunteers. I enjoy, my friends are Rotarians, most of them, and it's the involvement in my local Rotary Club, working with like-minded people who want to serve their community as they define it, and then the network keeps growing out of friends in different places. So it's there's something called the object of Rotary, and one of the things in that is acquaintance as an opportunity for service. To me, that's the essence of Rotary. Particularly as so many of us are isolated in our homes, and it's we're not mixing as much. It really reinforces the importance of the contacts with people, and not only contacts that are ephemeral, but ones that really can make a difference in people's lives. And Rotary, everyone can find their niche in it. Of what they're interested in. We've just adopted the environment as a new area of focus, but in the end, it's that acquaintance, and obviously polio. I particularly this session, I don't want to minimize that. It'll be a great achievement, but it'll be a great achievement for all of Rotary. It'll be a great achievement as well for all of the countries of the world, and mainly, as Bob Scott said when he raised that class, it's all about the children of the world. And, you can feel good knowing you're helping.
Mike, thank you for being on the show and for all that you are doing.
Thank you very much. It's, we have 1.2 million Rotarians all working together, and that's is going to make a big difference in getting this done.
October 24th is World Polio Day. Go to endpolio.org to learn how you can help eradicate polio. That's endpolio.org, and find out what you can do to help eradicate polio. By the way, I usually give a shout out to Brattleboro Sunrise Rotary past president Kevin Yeager for doing the magic behind the cameras, and I look forward to when we can return to the BCTV studio. Speaking of BCTV, I'd like to thank them for recognizing us as the 2018 Nonprofit Member of the Year. And a special thanks to Brian Brashaw for helping us bring this show to you. If you have any questions, concerns, or ideas for future topics, send them to info@BrattleboroRotaryClub.org, info@BrattleboroRotaryClub.org. I'm Marty Cohn. Thanks for watching, listening, and stay healthy.